Hello Internet, my name is Brink and welcome to my quick start guides. Today we're taking a look at the Deathbringer Blood Death Knight rotation. This isn't a full deep dive. See it as a core rotation guide, providing you with the foundation you need and help you understand how the spec works so you can get quickly comfortable at the start of the new expansion. No homework, no spreadsheets, just the important knowledge you need to start tanking with confidence. If you do enjoy this guide and would like to see a talent guide or a more in-depth guide of the Blood Death Knight, make sure to press like on this video. If this video reaches 500 likes, I will create a more in-depth guide for the Blood Death Knight. For this video, we'll be strictly focusing on the Deathbringer rotation and how it works together with a few important talents. This way you can get a clearer understanding what is happening and why. Talent build links can be found in the description below. Let's dive straight in. New talents that impact your rotation on the class side of the tree. Well, this first one doesn't really have a huge impact on your rotation. I do feel it's worth mentioning. It's Blood Draw. When you fall below 30% health, you drain health from enemies. Damage you take is reduced by 10% and your death strike cost is reduced, so you can be sure to use it more often to get your health back up. Improved Death Strike lowers your death strike cost with 5 runic power. This combined with Ossuary, and when your health drops below 30%, your death strike cost can drop to a meager 25 runic power. On the spec side, a few talents that can affect your rotation. Ossuary. When 5 bone shield charges are active, the cost of your death strike is reduced by 5 runic power. Consumption has been reworked into an empowered ability that requires you to stand still while casting. This will impact overall mobility. I'll be honest, I'm not sure about this particular rework. I reckon some people will like it and some won't. Myself, I'm glad it's a talent choice. And I do hope the Sims will allow us to opt out of this ability entirely. But I'll be sure to mention it further in the rotation guide. Bone Collector is a standout. And why? Well, it has a great passive effect that immediately grants you a stack of bone shield whenever you use a pull ability. It's simple but elegant. As from the latest testing so far, it only works on Death Caress. I would also expect it to work on Death Grip, Gorfin's Grasp and Abomination Limb. It used to work earlier in testing, so I'm assuming this is just a bug and it will be fixed before launch. Let me know in the comments if anything in the future has changed on this. Speaking of Abomination Limb, Abomination Limb is back. It's a choice node with Gorfin's Grasp. This one pulls all mobs together and silences them. Deadly Reach, a fresh addition that makes Death Strike hit 2 extra enemies at 75% effectiveness. That is on the damage and healing department. This is huge for cleave situations and helps smooth out your threat and multi-target pulls. Lifeblood. This talent adds a healing over time effect every time you Death Strike, smoothing out your healing. Maybe it got invented to soothe the minds of the healers, healing you, seeing your health less bouncing all over the place. Boiling Point. Hard Strike has a chance to make your blood boil, empowered, dealing 50% increased damage. And the last talent I want to highlight, Blood Mists. Crazy animation of Dancing Rune Weapon, as it redesigns your Dancing Rune Weapon, giving it exactly what the name suggests, a mist of blood, making the ability feel more thematic and gives your Dancing Rune Weapon even more weight in your defensive and offensive windows. Overall, these changes are good improvements, and honestly, you definitely have some builds to experiment with, and a lot more fun to build around. Hero Talents. The Deathbringer Hero Talent tree turns your Blood Death Knight into a scythe-swinging executioner. He kinda looks like a Death Reaper, hence the name Deathbringer, I suppose. Built around Reaper's Mark, a debuff that you stack up to 40 by using Shadow and Frost damage abilities. Once it hits 40 stacks, it detonates for massive damage, and then lets you swing multiple scythes through using empowered Marrow Rends. Another animation that looks really nice on your screen, and provides you with that sense of pressing something cool. It rewards clean rotation, with explosive damage, extra survivability, and some of the most satisfying visuals in the game. Tracking this buff by itself isn't super interesting if you ask me, and you really don't need to focus on this one as much. You're bound to reach that 40 in no time, just by doing your rotation. The Blood Death Knight Apex talent in Midnight turns Dancing Rune Weapon into a powerhouse. While Dancing Rune Weapon is active, parrying attacks can make your next hard strike free and a lot stronger. Each active rune weapon boosts damage while reducing what damage you take. And spending more runes can even summon extra rune weapons, extending those buffs further. Dancing Rune Weapon is still your core offensive and defensive cooldown, providing you with 20% parry and additional 5% from Blood Mist and roughly 5% from Riposte, for a total of 30% parry. The Apex talents then turn all that parry into empowered hard strikes, making Blood a parry-fueled self-sustained monster. And don't ignore the stat Critical Strike. Thanks to Riposte, it's not just an offensive but also a defensive stat too. Scaling with enemy hits in Mythic Plus and making Blood Death Knights even stronger during high volume pulls. So in a nutshell, the more hits you get from enemies during Dancing Rune Weapon, the more you will parry. Parrying attacks can reduce the rune cost of your hard strike and make it hit much harder. Understanding the rotation. Instead of me explaining a fixed order of buttons to press, I feel it's way more useful to understand the meaning of your rotation and what it is you're trying to accomplish. Let's start with explaining the basics first. You have two resources, Runic Power and Runes. Hard Strike costs 1 rune, does physical cleave damage and generates Runic Power the more enemies you hit. Death Strike costs normally 45 Runic Power. With the talents mentioned earlier, this can be lowered. It does physical damage and even cleave damage because of the talent Deadly Reach. It's your main ability to keep you alive. Basically a reactive tool to convert absorbed damage into a self-heal. Blood Boil is your AoE nuke threat generator and a filler. Use it to spread Blood Plague and have empowered Blood Boil from the talent Boiling Point for even more damage. Marrow Rend does physical damage and generates 3 charges of Bone Shield. Death Caress is your ranged ability that does shadow damage by applying Blood Plague, just like Blood Boil does, and it generates 2 Bone Shield charges. Death and Decay corrupts the ground, it heals you, it makes you do more damage, and it also does shadow damage. All this shadow damage is important to know for your Reaper's Mark. We will talk more about this when discussing cooldowns. So these are your core abilities for your rotation. If you are new to the Blood Death Knight, my advice would be go to a dummy and start practicing the following. Run in, pull at range with Death Caress, pop Blood Boil and close at the enemies. Then use the macro, Death and Decay, to place it at your feet. That's your pull right there. Now we start playing your minigame. Start rotating your abilities. First by pressing Hard Strike 2 or 3 times. This will help get your Runic Power up. Press Marrow Rend, adding 3 more bones. This should set you up to 5 bones. Now press Death Strike for 35 Runic Power. Now everything is at play now. Your bones, your cooldowns. Make sure your Death and Decay doesn't run out and that your Blood Boil doesn't reach 2 stacks. Keep your bones at 5 stacks while you rotate your abilities. It's a mindset and a rhythm you have to get into. It sounds like you're managing a lot. You got your runes rolling, Runic Power being generated, and you have to keep an eye on all your resources. Keep pressing your abilities with this mindset, and once you get the hang of this, you can start adding cooldowns. Blood Death Knight doesn't rely on a long list of big cooldowns. Instead, it revolves around 2 extremely powerful ones. These cooldowns are frequently used and define your entire gameplay flow. Dancing Rune Weapon is your main defensive but also your offensive cooldown. Basically, this is your most important cooldown, and it really feels cool to press. When activated, Dancing Rune Weapon will explode in a red mist, grants 20% parry, copies your Hard Strike and Marrow Rend, and dramatically boosts both damage and mitigation. Because of its low cooldown, you want to use Dancing Rune Weapon as often as possible, not save it for emergencies. Think of it as a defensive uptime tool, not a panic button. Use Dancing Rune Weapon on pull, on every pack, on dangerous boss moments. Basically on cooldown, unless you are deliberately holding it for an incoming mechanic or important moment. The more often Dancing Rune Weapon is active, the more durable and explosive your Blood Death Knight becomes. Reaper's Mark is your damage power spike. Reaper's Mark is not a passive bonus, it's a mini game baked into your rotation that kinda doesn't have an impact on your rotation. It's on a 45-second cooldown, should be applied as often as possible. Its stacks grows through shadow damage and basically by your rotational flow, just by making sure your enemies stand in your Death and Decay and you press Blood Boil and spread your disease Blood Plague. You should have no issue for it to reach 40 stacks, and when it does, it delivers a massive burst of damage and threat. To maximize Reaper's Mark, keep your rotation clean, maintain Death and Decay uptime, ensure your shadow damage abilities are flowing. Pair it with Dancing Rune Weapon whenever possible to amplify the value. The better your rotational play, the faster and harder Reaper's Mark will pay off. How they work together. This is where Blood Death Knight truly shines. When Dancing Rune Weapon and Reaper's Mark overlap, your parry skyrockets, your Hard Strike procs explode, your shadow damage ramps, your survivability and damage peak simultaneously. This synergy is what makes Blood Death Knight feel unkillable in big pools and dominate in sustained combat. Resource management. I've said resource management a lot in this guide, and there's a lot of things to keep in mind. So let me put this one more time in perspective, because this spec really lives and dies by resource management. Optimizing resources is super important. And then you have some buffs and debuffs you need to track, as this feeds into your resources. Openers are important, sure, but the real power comes from keeping your resources in check, your cooldown cycling, and your buffs and debuffs up at all times. So first things first, what does it mean to optimize resources? You got 2 stacks of Blood Boil, so you want to make sure you never cap these. Make sure there's always a global cooldown rolling in the background. Your runes. You want 3 runes recharging as often as possible, and you don't want to overcap Runic Power. Basically, always keep your tools ready without wasting anything. Now let's talk buffs. Some key ones to keep an eye on. Death and Decay, Bone Shield and Coagulopathy. You should always track these and use them in an intelligent manner. Bone shield is next. Don't let it drop. Cast it on cooldown. Remember, stacking more bone shields doesn't give you extra armor, so just keep it active. But you want at least 5 bones to lower your death strike cost. So the main thing is to keep it active, and keeping it up 100% of the time is really important. Runic power mainly gets spent on death strike. Use it to heal yourself after damage taken. This way you always have a death strike in the bank, but you're not wasting runic power by overcapping. Plus it helps keep coagulopathy rolling in your rotation. Next up, Death and Decay. Cast this if the buff isn't active. And don't forget, cleaving strikes makes your hard strike hit up to 3 additional enemies when standing in your Death and Decay. You do more damage and receive more healing, so with 2 charges, there's no reason why you shouldn't be standing in it. Consumption, if you talented into it, cast it whenever it's available. That's an easy one. So in short, track your buffs, never waste resources, keep your cooldowns on rotation, and your rotation will practically take care of itself. Blood Death Knights are all about efficiency and uptime. Nail that and you'll be tanking like a pro. The Blood Death Knight in Midnight has one of the heaviest defensive kits in the game, making it feel like you always have something ready for every situation. Besides the parry increase from Blood Mist and Dancing Rune Weapon, providing you with a massive boost to damage and mitigation, you also have Vampiric Blood. This increases your maximum health and healing received, giving a strong, predictable defensive spike whenever you need it. Icebound Fortitude provides a huge damage reduction plus stun immunity, perfect for soaking high bursts of incoming damage. Anti-Magic Shell, very situational, but it does absorb magic damage and protects you from dangerous spells. Just like Anti-Magic Zone, this protects anyone standing inside from magic damage. Lichborn adds Leech and immunity to fierce charms and sleeps. Finally, Purgatory acts as a cheat death, giving you a safety net if things go south. Together, these cooldowns make Blood Death Knights incredibly durable in Mythic Plus dungeons and in raids, allowing you to survive punishing encounters while still dealing consistent damage. And there you have it, that's the full breakdown. Keep this cycle going and you'll maximize both your damage and survivability. And don't worry if you feel like you're making small mistakes, it usually won't be a big issue. It's time to wrap things up. There's honestly a lot more we could talk about with Blood Death Knights. This hero talent build is a lot of fun and definitely worth a deep dive. Smash that like button and I will provide you with one. For now, we covered a lot, just going over your core rotation, so we're going to end it here. I hope this video helped you out. If it did, drop a comment below and let me know. Macros and builds are in the description for you. With all that being said, I'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching this video and until next time, Brinks out.